the Radio Forest Podcast.
Craig Gass, what's happening, man? Welcome back.
Dude, I'm so excited. After years and years of doing shows in Boise where I would do bars and then clubs and then eventually comedy clubs. I did Funny Bone back in the day and then Lounge at the End of the Universe. And then now to work my way up to the Egyptian this Saturday it's such an accomplishment for me.
That's a big theater. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Last time I saw you, you were here with Steve-O, and I think he mentioned you recently on his podcast.
He did a couple of times. Gene Simmons called me out as an a-hole on his podcast. And then I think Sebastian Bach brought me up too, because last year Sebastian Bach put me in his music video. I did a music video where I was on a radio show, Eddie Trunk.
Yeah.
And on Eddie Trunk's show, I just started doing an impression of Sebastian, and I thought, I hope he's not listening, because I know he listens to that show all the time, and I didn't know if he would like the impression. And I get off the air, and my Twitter has over 100 replies and comments on it. And I looked, and it was Sebastian Bach going, dude, I'm in my backyard smoking a joint in my pool, and there's some guy doing an impression of me. What the hell is going on? And he called me up and said, dude, I want you in my music video. We're going to film outside of the desert in Vegas. And I was like, oh, that's where he's going to kill me. And I showed up in the desert, and there was a camera crew, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to survive this. And we filmed a music video, and it was incredible. Sebastian brought me up on Steve-O's podcast. By the way, when I was here a couple of years ago hanging out with Steve-O, I've known Steve-O for about 20 years now. And I got sober before he did. And he's always been so nice to me. When I came in to hang out with him, he was like, you want to do a set at my show, dude? And I go, yeah, I would love to. And he let me do 15 minutes at the Egyptian, and then he gave me a check.
That's awesome.
Which is incredible. He didn't have to do that. He's
really
just
cool.
an unbelievably nice guy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But yeah, so I'm doing shows at the Egyptian. I'm a comedian. I'm mostly known for doing voices. I've always been able to do any voice that I hear. That's why I do voices on Family Guy and American Dad and The Howard Stern Show. And it's all because I grew up in a family that's deaf. My mom, my dad, and my sister are all completely deaf. Not a joke. And growing up in a deaf family, I couldn't learn how to talk for my family. I learned how to talk by watching TV and copying all the voices I heard on TV. I grew up outside the Bronx, so everyone in my neighborhood, I always say, and it's true, everybody in my neighborhood sounds like Tracy Morgan. Everybody in the Bronx talk like this, whether you black or white, male or female. That's crazy. So that was my neighborhood. So I watched TV and I copied all the voices I heard on TV. So
yeah, and I saw recently you're sitting side stage for Pearl Jam. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I brought my girlfriend who lives here in Boise, Darcy Nutt.
Yeah, tattooist.
She's a tattoo artist. She owns Chalice Studios, Chalice Tattoos. And I met her here a little over 3 years ago. My show at the Egyptian, January 11th, this Saturday, is my 3-year anniversary with Darcy from here in Boise.
Now, let's go back to Pearl Jam, but am I correct? You don't have any tattoos, do you?
I don't have any tattoos.
Are you scared about dating somebody that good at tattooing that eventually you're going to be like, yeah, I'm bored, you're bored, can I try something?
She agrees that I am not a tattoo person. So I'm too nerdy. I'm just not cool, man.
I got you.
I'm not cool. I'm not cool for tattoos. I'm not cool, period. And that's okay. I mean, dude, all my stories that I've told you over the years are just me losing my cool. Do you remember my story about my first episode of Family Guy? Did I tell you about that?
Is that where you want to hang out after?
So my first episode of Family Guy, I walk in, it's just me and Seth MacFarlane, and I can already tell I'm creeping him out. I can already tell every time I laugh so hard that Seth MacFarlane goes, okay, dude, let's calm down. Just calm down. We're going to go in. There's just going to be a few minutes. Let's get in the studio and let's bang it out. He's running the board. And we walk in. The whole recording session for Family Guy, my first episode, it lasts maybe 5 minutes. Seth MacFarlane keeps doing one line as Peter Griffin where he keeps saying, this is crazier than when Al Pacino was a slumlord laundromat tenant. And then they cut to me as Al Pacino, surrounded by a bunch of broken down washers and dryers going, you're out of order. And you're out of order. And you're all out of order. We did it 3 times. And then Seth MacFarlane goes, all right, man, I think we're good. And I'm so nervous because I think we're going to be friends now.
We're buddies now.
Dude, we're in the studio. We're working together. So that I stood up and I went, hey, so you want to hang out? And he goes, what do you mean hang out? And I go, you want to grab a coffee or something? And he goes, I got to work. And I said, okay. Do you want me to leave? He goes, yeah, get the hell out of here. And I went, oh, I'm sorry. Got my paperwork, walked out. I didn't hear from him again. They didn't call me for like 6 months after that. And then Linda, their casting director, started calling me and saying, hey, Craig, can you do this voice or can you do this voice? And every audition she gave me, I said, oh, I can do whatever you want. I can do whatever you want. But every time I get booked to do an episode of Family Guy or American Dad, I come in and Seth MacFarlane is never around. It's always Mike Henry, who does the voice of Cleveland and the creepy old guy. And every time I see Mike Henry, I go, hey, Mike, is Seth around? And every time I see him, he goes, don't worry about Seth. We'll get you out of here real quick.
He's got a buffer man now for you. Yeah.
But we're going in circles here. But yes, I took Darcy to meet my friend Mike in Australia, who plays guitar for Pearl Jam.
Do you mean Mike McCready?
Mike McCready.
My friend Mike McCready.
Yes.
That's awesome.
My buddy Mike has been the guitar player for Pearl Jam and super nice guy. And he's just time and time again has shown me how to be a better person. He's just an incredibly good person. Have I not told you any stories about Mike?
No, we've talked about Kiss. You hadn't mentioned Skid Row before. But no, you've never gotten into Pearl Jam at all. Van Halen stories we've gone over.
Living at Eddie Van Halen's house and all that stuff.
Yep.
So Mike is by the way, I'm going to tell you this story, okay? Not only is this story not funny at all, this story might lead to me losing ticket sales at the Egyptian this week. It might end up with refunds.
Well, last time we talked about like death and overdoses and drugs and alcohol.
Did we?
We were like, oh yeah, don't forget, this is a comedy show.
Yeah, we had to remind people.
Yeah.
So when it comes to being recognized, I have friends of mine who are really famous, really successful, who go out of their way to not get recognized by people. I, on the other hand, get so excited when I get recognized that I am embarrassing. I will, if somebody recognizes me on the street and goes, hey man, aren't you the guy from blah, blah, blah? I will talk to you until you get to the point where you're like, all right, man.
I gotta go.
I gotta go. No, where are you going? You're my fan. Let's go hang out. Like,
Yeah.
I make it weird for people. I can't believe that people recognize me from TV and from, Family Guy or Howard Stern, whatever. I get excited about it. And I was in Las Vegas. I'm a huge Seahawks fan. And I went to a Seahawks bar in Las Vegas to watch. We're just, it's a bar known for Sundays that only Seahawk fans hang out. And this woman comes up to me and says, my husband is your biggest fan, but he's too shy to say hello. Do you mind coming over to say hi to him? I said, yeah, where's he at? What's his name? She goes, it's Bob. And I go, what's up, Bob? And we walk over, Bob, what's up, dude? Hang out and become friends with Bob. He's a sweetheart. He's morbidly obese, is a special ed teacher, and is one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. And we exchanged phone numbers. And over the course of the next year or so, we start hanging out. Every time I come to Vegas, I call him up, take him out to dinner, and then we just talk about life. And then I start getting really into his health. I'm worried about his health because that first day that I met him, he told me that he was in a coma at one point in his life. I never told you the story.
No.
He was in a coma, and his wife would visit him every day. His wife brought in a boombox one day and started playing his favorite band on the boombox. And Bob had a physical reaction to his favorite band. In a coma, Bob started crying. Tears started coming down his face. It's this incredible story. And I said, that's insane. Who's the band? Who's your favorite band? And he goes, Pearl Jam. And I go, Pearl Jam's your favorite band? And he goes, yeah. I go, do you know I'm friends with one of those guys? And he goes, oh, dude, yeah, I follow you online. And man, you get to do a lot of cool stuff. And I instantly felt terrible that I have had incredible strokes of luck with being able to do cool things. Never did anything to earn it. I've just been very fortunate. And so we exchanged phone numbers and we hung out. And every time I'd see him, it would always be like, at some point, there'd be some concern about, hey, what are you doing for your health? Like, do you do you walk at all, or do you? And he said, well, my doctor says I should walk, but it's really hard because I'm a special ed teacher and I'm literally physically picking up kids all day, so I'm exhausted when I get home.
But this is after the coma.
It's after the coma.
But he's overweight. He's obese.
He's still morbidly overweight and morbidly obese, and so at some point I just said, dude, how about I walk with you? How about if I call you every day and we'll go for a walk? And he said, really? And I go, yeah, why not? I mean, look at me, dude. I could use a walk. And so I started calling him, and that first time I called him, by the way, I don't know if you've ever been in a position where your brain tells you, you know what, do the right thing. And I go, you know what, Bob, I'll walk with you. And he goes, all right, cool. And I'm cool. Yeah, dude, I'm going to walk with you. And I go, when do you want to start? And I go, how about Sunday? And he goes, all right, we'll do it on Sunday. And then Sunday comes around. I'm like, oh man.
Man, why'd I say that?
I committed myself to walking with this guy. And I called him up and I go, hey, Bob, hey, remember we got to go for a walk today? And he goes, yeah, I know. And I go, well, he doesn't want to do it either. I go, just put your shoes on and we walk for 20 minutes. And it actually is shockingly easy to walk for 20 minutes. I had never done it before. And then we did it again the next day and the next day. And then at some point I was like, dude, we just walked for 30 minutes. And then before you know it, within a couple of weeks, we're walking for an hour every day. Now, fast forward a couple months down the road, I'm doing shows in Minnesota to time it with Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam's also in Minnesota at a much bigger venue than I'm in. And Mike comes to my show, Mike McCready, and after my show, he invites me to come see Soundcheck the next day, and I hang out with him at Soundcheck, and I tell him then, I go, did I tell you that I have a walking buddy? And he goes, you have a walking buddy? And I go, well, it's
not a boyfriend.
Yeah, I go, I know that. I actually said, look, it's as heterosexual as it can be, all right? I walk with this guy every day. He lives in Vegas, and I call him from whatever city I'm in every day, and we go for walks every day. Dude, this guy, I got to tell you, man, this guy has had all kinds of health problems. He's the sweetest guy I've ever met. He's a special ed teacher, but he's morbidly overweight. And get this, he was in a coma. And his wife came in and played your music on a boombox while he was in a coma. And in a coma, listening to your music, he had a physical reaction. He had tears running down his face in a coma. And he goes, that's crazy. I go, yeah, it's insane. So I would never ask this for any other situation. But the next time you perform in Vegas, would it be okay if I sent him to meet you at your show? And he said, yeah, of course. Yeah, dude, you could send him and I'll introduce him to the band. And then he started making jokes, and he said, you know what? Well, maybe the band will take him for a walk. We'll take him for a walk around the arena.
Now Pearl Jam's got to get up every Sunday.
Now they got to get up every Sunday.
Walk with this guy from Vegas.
Well, it became a daily thing. We actually walked every day. And luckily, we have the same things in common. So the conversation now is we talk about the Seahawks and how much we love the Seahawks, how awful the Mariners are, how much we love Kiss, how much we love Pearl Jam. And he starts telling me, dude, Pearl Jam's going on tour. Did you see that? And I go, oh, man, Bob, you know what? You're not going to get those tickets, man. Those are hard. Like, I'm building up a surprise for him. I'm like, you won't even get in, dude. You're not even getting in to see Pearl Jam. It's such a tough ticket. And I can't wait to just blow his mind. The nicest guy I've ever met. I'm going to blow his mind and do something absolutely incredible for this human being. And a few months later, his wife called me. I just landed in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time, and she said, hey, I have some bad news. Bob had another medical incident. He is septic.
That's dangerous.
And he's got 48 hours to live, 72 hours to live. And I just got in my car in Los Angeles and started driving to Vegas. And my head was spinning about Bob and our relationship that we developed over the last couple of years. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I never even got to do the super cool thing for him. I never got to introduce him to Pearl Jam. He deserved to meet Pearl Jam and have a moment. He was such a sweet human being, and I couldn't believe that I failed at that it was still so far away that I wasn't able to make it happen. So I opened up my phone and I start texting Mike, and I said, hey, dude, I don't know if you remember me telling you about my buddy the special ed teacher who was your biggest fan, and he had a physical reaction in a coma listening to your music, and you said you would meet him. He's not going to have that chance because he's in the hospital. He's got 72 hours to live. I'm actually on my way to see him right now. But I want to tell you what Bob would have said to you, because he talked about you almost every day. So I start writing a fan letter to my buddy Bob, or from my buddy Bob.
To Mike from Bob.
To Mike McCready from my buddy Bob. And after a few minutes, Mike wrote me back and said, what was his name? And I said, it's Bob. His name is Bob Miles. And then after about 45 minutes, I'm now in the desert between California and Las Vegas. I get a video from Mike, and I push play, and this is the video.
Hey, Bob Miles, it's Mike McCready. I got a message from my dear friend Craig Gass, and I want to send you something I'm writing for you right now, so hopefully this helps you in your journey.
He's got a guitar, and he's playing music for Bob, that he wrote for Bob, to help him as he crosses over. And I just started bawling. And then there's another video. He sent me 4 videos in total. I called up Bob's wife, and I said, hey, is Bob with you right now? And she said, yeah, he's doing okay. He's in and out. And I said, okay, I'm going to send you a video. You need to play this for him right now. Mike McCready from Pearl Jam just wrote some music for Bob, and you need to play this for him. And I sent her the videos, and she called me later and said that she got him when he was clear, and she said, hey, Craig's coming. He's going to hang out. He's coming to be with you. And check this out. The guitarist of Pearl Jam wrote some music for you. And she played the video for him. She said that he sat up in his bed and was watching, and he had to hold his eyelids down because he was crying so much watching it. Oof. And the last thing Bob saw on planet Earth was his favorite guitar player of his favorite band playing music he had written for Bob. And I was so worried about, God, he's such a nice guy. He deserves nice things because he's such a kind person. And on his last day on earth, he got the most beautiful thing. And again, I realize this is the worst way to promote a comedy show, but I'm
Saturday night at the Egyptian Theater.
The Egyptian Theater.
The best jokes.
I'm going to be at the Egyptian Theater, and I swear to God, I'm usually hilarious. I know this isn't funny at all, but I'm going to be at the Egyptian Theater. It's such a big moment for me in my life to make it to the Egyptian. And I just told you the saddest story ever, but my God, was that a profound moment in my life. And Mike McCready continues to just show me over and over again. I mean, in the middle of the show, when I brought Darcy, Darcy flew out from Boise, and she came out to join me in Sydney, and we were on stage with Pearl Jam. And in the middle of the show, Mike would come over and just tell horrible jokes to us, like in the middle of the show, and be like, hey, I got to go.
Yeah, you're in Pearl Jam. What are you doing? Get back out there.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But just moments like that have changed me and changed what's important to me. Like, I can't believe I get to do stand-up comedy. Do you ever have moments like that where you can't believe you're in radio?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll run into somebody, people that we would know together, Kiss. A couple of times I've met Gene and interviewed Ace. That was kind of surreal. Actually, I ran into someone that you would know, Dave Buckner from Papa Roach.
I love Dave. Dave's going to be at my show. One of my best friends, and he lives here over by Nampa. And Dave is going to come to the show. Dave is actually the centerpiece for one of the greatest stories of all time, and it all happened right here in Boise. It is absolutely the most insane experience I've ever had, and it involves everyone in it lives in Boise. It's an insane Boise story, and he's in the center of it, and I'm going to tell that story in the middle of the show at the Egyptian. But, dude, Dave Buckner is one of the nicest, most easygoing guys. Always has his vape. He's got good energy. Like, you say hi to him, and he's just like, hey, dude, it's cool, man. How are you?
Yeah.
Like he's just got cool energy. But you know, I know so many stories now about Pearl Jam that nobody else knows, that I fed some of them to Howard, because Howard Stern was going to interview Pearl Jam, and I said, hey man, here's some cool stories I don't think they'll mind you asking about. And one of them is one of my favorite stories that nobody's ever known, and it finally came out on the air, that Matt was in a what's his last name? The drummer of Matt Cameron.
Cameron, yeah.
Matt Cameron, when Matt Cameron was 15 years old, did I ever tell you that Matt was in a Kiss cover band?
No.
Matt Cameron was in a Kiss cover band when he was 15 years old in Seattle. They called themselves Kiss. The logo.
The cover band's Kiss.
But they call themselves Kiss. They got the logo,
Yeah.
and once a month they would do shows at friends' houses and put flyers around their school, like this Saturday
Kiss.
at Forrest's house. 8 p.m. Kiss, and it's the Kiss logo, and here's Forrest's address to get to Forrest's house, and they would do these gigs. And then Matt one day comes home and he got a letter in the mail from Casablanca Records, which was Kiss's record label, and he's like, oh my God, we're getting signed. And he's freaking out, and he calls all the other kids in the band. He's like, all right, I'm not going to open until you come over. Everybody come over. We're going to open this together. We're going to open it together. And all these 15-year-olds gather at Matt Cameron's house, and they open up this letter together. It's a cease and desist. They were 15 years old, and they got a cease and desist from Kiss. It's one of the craziest stories ever. And, I am, besides the 2 comedy specials I'm putting out this year, the first one of which is just me making fun of Kiss for an hour. I'm also launching 2 podcasts, and one of them is a storytelling podcast to tell. It's called I Swear This Is True. Like the Mike McCready story I just told you.
Yeah.
That story with not just the video of Mike, but Bob's kids are going to join me on that podcast. When I lived at Eddie Van Halen's house, the people who were also working for Van Halen at the time, and people who were there when I went bowling with Eddie Van Halen the first time, like all the witnesses are going to be there. And then there's also a podcast that I'm launching with Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah, bassist, yeah.
The bassist of Five Finger Death Punch.
He's in Vegas, right? He's a Vegas guy.
He also lives about 10 minutes from me in Vegas. And we're doing a podcast together that's going to launch in a couple of weeks from the time that we're recording right now. We're going to launch on Loudwire magazine's YouTube page.
Yeah.
So a lot of great things are happening, but it all starts January 11th here in Boise at the Egyptian Theater, which I'm really excited about.
Now, what was it like with Metallica and Pantera? Because you did that tour 2024, right?
I opened for Pantera.
Oh, man, that's awesome. No, it's not awesome?
It was terrible.
Because of the fans?
Well, here's what happened. The show went okay. Then the media picked up on what I did, and they took it completely out of context. Because when I opened for bands, and this started with Metallica. I opened for Metallica 20-something years ago, and I was so excited to be one of the guys. Like, the band likes me so much that Metallica is going to have me open for them. And then I get to the venue, and I realize, wait a minute. Everyone here is on coke. Like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be a part of this. And then I got really scared. And Lars, his idea to combat my fear was like, dude, you're overthinking it. I'll just go out on stage and I'll say, hey, Metallica's about to kick your ass in about 15, 20 minutes. But first, I'm going to bring out a good friend of mine who's going to tell you some jokes. And I was like, are you crazy? That's the worst introduction ever for Metallica. Metallica's about to come out, but hey, we're going to bring out a friend who's going to tell you some jokes. Are you crazy? And he said, dude, you're overthinking it. I said, no, just give me a microphone. I'm going to walk on stage and I'm just going to say hello. And what I decided to do was say, good evening. My name's Craig. I am Metallica's tour manager. And the crowd went, and then I just started making announcements that were all fake, but all the announcements were super cool. And it got people to listen to me. So when I got to do it with Pantera, I did the same thing. I said, I'm the band's tour manager. Everybody went nuts. And I said, hey, the band has some very important announcements. You may have heard some rumors, and it's true. We are recording our first ever live album right here. So I need your attention. There's a proper way to yell on a live album, so we need to rehearse this. And they follow every stupid instruction I give them at that point. The problem was the next day, all these media outlets started reporting
Live album coming,
according to an employee of Pantera. An employee for Pantera.
Yeah, because they see the video from the crowd that someone sends them. Like, hey, the manager said.
An employee of Pantera has now said that Pantera is recording a new live album, which made people rightfully offended because it's like,
it's not Pantera.
It's not Pantera. It's not Dimebag, and it's not Vinny. Why would you do that? And people start getting upset, and people start crapping on the employee. I'm completely anonymous. So I started going on all the message boards and crapping on me too and going, yeah, screw that guy. That guy's a dick. And I start posting, I started quoting my material from that night as part of my trolling. I said, why did he even bring up the size of Zakk Wylde's genitalia? What did that have to do with anything? and I'm just crapping on myself, and everyone's like, yeah, screw him. We hate him. And then a few days of that go by, and then Pantera releases a statement and says, no, we didn't record a live album. That was just a joke from our good buddy, comedian Craig Gass. And they tagged me in everything. And the whole crowd was like, get him. So it was a little tense. And the articles were incredible. And honestly, it led to this deal being put into place with Loudwire because Chris Cale is one of the most popular bands in hard rock with Five Finger Death Punch. And I'm a comedian who has all these affiliations with all these bands. So they said, this makes complete sense. Let's give you guys a podcast and let's launch this thing. So we're eight episodes deep, and they're all going to drop at the same time.
Are you going to have guests on there just with your connections and people you bump into, Mike McCready, now Zakk Wylde, possibly things like that?
Yeah, it's not just going to be musicians. It's going to be comedians too. So famous, successful comedians and musicians. And Chris Cale started doing stand-up. He loves stand-up comedy. So it's going to be a mixed bag of all that stuff. And for us hanging out, it's always us just catching up on life. And so yes, the answer is yes and yes. It's going to be across, because comedy right now is bigger than music in terms of a single artist can sell out an arena with absolutely no support act.
One act, there's just one act.
And there's at least a dozen to 24 comedians right now. And you can't say the same for rock. There's only a handful of rock bands that can perform in an arena without any announced
it's like the Sphere Las Vegas. Like only so many bands can show up and continue to sell it out. You've got the Eagles,
U2. I'm sure
Stones.
The Stones. I'm sure Taylor Swift is going to do something there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, The Dead, stuff like that. And but yeah, stand-up comedy, it's crazy. Sebastian Maniscalco, Nate Bargatze, John Mulaney, of course, Chappelle.
They're all stadiums.
They're all, And now getting to stadiums. Yeah, Kevin Hart and Gabriel Iglesias did stadiums now. So it's insane. So, but I'm happy to do the Egyptian. That's what I honest to God, I've seen shows in the Egyptian. I've performed there with Steve-O. So to be able to stand on that stage this Saturday.
That's a good sized venue. It really is. I've seen quite a few shows there. I wanted to ask you, because I saw too that you got to hang out with Carrot Top. I think he's the best. I really do. I've seen him live, tears coming down my face. It's well planned with the recklessness of stand-ups. He acts like he doesn't know where it's going, and it's just off the top of his head.
Yeah.
But it's so well produced with the music and you know, lights and fans, and it's just such a good thing. So did you perform? Did you go see him? Did you happen to just talk to him in Vegas? What's his story with Carrot Top?
Dude, 15 years ago, I do the roast of Gene Simmons. It's my first time doing a televised roast. And I'm scared to death because if you trip up at a roast, you will be remembered for the rest of your life. It's like farting in high school. Don't be the guy who farts in high school.
Yeah.
Because you'll be, especially if your last name is Gas. I'm doomed. So I always kept it really tight in high school. And so now as a comedian, you really want to be super prepared for a roast, which is hard to do because you cannot test the material. You can't go on a random comedy club stage and
do a joke about a random person.
It makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
So your only shot at it is live on camera that's going to be distributed internationally. So I do the roast of Gene Simmons, and I worked really, really hard day and night for weeks, and it goes over well, and it feels so good. It really connected. I sit down, and I start to relax. And then the next comedian is Carrot Top. And Carrot Top comes out, And the first thing you do is you go around, you slap everyone on the stage. He goes, hey, Ralphie May is here. Joke, joke, joke. Andrew Dice Clay is here. You're an old joke, 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 joke. Lisa Lampanelli, you fat, blah, blah, blah. Joke, joke, joke. And then he goes around and he goes, Craig Gass is here. Man, I can't. Craig, you did so good. I can't even make fun of you now. And I went, what? Like,
That's huge.
And he said that on TV. For Carrot Top to say that on TV, hey, man, you might not know who that guy was, but let me tell you, he just killed.
That's awesome.
That was absolutely incredible. And so we exchanged phone numbers, and we've been friends ever since. And earlier this year, I brought Carrot Top and Bert Kreischer to the Super Bowl to interview the Chiefs and the 49ers. And I asked, and at that time, Carrot Top had so much fun that he said, man, I should have you open for me sometime because sometimes my opener doesn't, for one reason or another, he can't make it. And I said, I would love to open for you sometime. And it was day of, I was actually moving that day. And he texted me and said, hey, are you in town tonight? And I went, oh, man, with all the stuff I got. And I go, yes. And he's like, you want to do 15 minutes of my show? And I go, oh, no, but yes, let's do it. And I got to open for him that night. And Chris Kale actually came down to support.
In Vegas, that's awesome. Because Carrot has that residency, right?
He has a residency at the Luxor, which I believe this year, 2025, is his 20th year.
Something like that.
And that's just at the Luxor.
Yeah. He
was doing other venues before that. Yeah, I mean, even George Carlin was a fan of Carrot Top.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got some stories about Carlin, but I'll defend him forever. I've seen him a bunch of times, and it's just like he's writing jokes. He's thinking about it. Some comedians just tell stories. That's what you and I are doing now. But, I mean, you've got an incredible set of skills with your impressions and stuff like that. But Carrot is just always so well prepared, and, like, he's telling jokes, and I appreciate that in his style of comedy. So I'll defend him forever. If anybody says he sucks, I'm like, well, then you haven't seen him live. Because you won't see him live and then think he sucks. Maybe you saw something on TV and you were annoyed, or you see him too much and you were annoyed, or you don't like his look, but you haven't sat through a show because you'll be laughing.
Forrest is tapping into something that was just, for some reason, was just part of it was in the ether that it was popular to bag on.
It's fun. It can be fun to hate on things online.
Yeah, like Nickelback and whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I remember when I first started doing stand-up, it was popular to bag on Carrot Top back then. And I'll never forget my friend Josh Wolf, who's now a really successful comedian.
Yeah, he's been through Boise. We've talked to him. Josh
Wolf, I remember him I wasn't expressing an opinion one way or the other, but people were bagging on Carrot Top, and Josh Wolf in the back of the room goes, hey, man, that guy's been selling tens of thousands of tickets for years, and lots of people go to see him, so clearly people think he's funny regardless of what you think. And I was like, wow, man, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. Like, who are you to bag on anyone who's making it work? Like, clearly that's stand-up comedy, and that's what people are paying to see. They go to see him because they find him to be entertaining. And, man, when you go see Carrot Top, that is one of the most entertaining shows you will ever see. And he couldn't be a nicer guy. He's just an incredibly kind and sweet human being. He's just a good dude.
And he's jacked.
He's totally, yeah, that's the crazy thing that happened. I remember before we did that roast, I think a couple of years, I was starting to sit in on the Howard Stern show, and I went to a U2 concert at Madison Square Garden, and Carrot Top and I ended up in an elevator together with a bunch of other people, and Carrot Top was telling me then, he goes, hey, man, tell Howard I'd love to be on the show sometime. And he goes, even if it's just to make fun of me, because dude, I mean, I get it. Look at me. I'm weird. And I go, oh, man, that's okay. Yeah. I'll let him know. Like that was, I love that about him. But yeah, he makes fun of himself, and he's just a really, God, his show is really, really funny. Not only is it funny, I find myself being the most basic comedy audience member watching his show. I find myself going, oh my God, that's so true. So true. And I love that people like even Joe Rogan are giving him the credit he deserves now.
That's true. He has been on, I think, with Steve-O and all the people. So they're like, you're definitely a comedian. Yeah. And people are giving him the props that he deserves. And but yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, dude, this show that I'm doing, it's a storytelling show that I'm doing at the Egyptian this Saturday. And I got a couple of great comedians that are performing with me. And it's a lot of impressions, stories about the people who I do impressions of, and then the greatest Boise story ever. So can we hear some of the impressions that you're well known for? Well, there's Gene Simmons from Kiss, who I learned a long time ago. If you want to do an impression of Gene Simmons, just listen to Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's the same voice. Hi, this is Benjamin Netanyahu from Kiss. It's the same voice. And Paul Stanley, who's a little bit softer when he's off stage. I saw him do an interview where somebody said, why is Kiss so amazing? And he goes, you know, a lot of bands are envious of Kiss. I'm even envious of Kiss. On stage in Las Vegas, I heard Paul Stanley go, all right, people, now listen. You know, I know this town, Las Vegas, is known for its buffets. And I can tell you after this show, I see a lot of people in the front row. I really want to eat. And then he started fixing his hair. And I go, what the hell does that mean? And then I see the same tour 2 months later in New York City. And I bring a bunch of comedians, Jim Norton, Jeff Ross, Steve Byrne. I bring them all backstage to the Kiss concert at Madison Square Garden. And as I'm introducing them to all the employees for Kiss, I'm asking all the employees, like, hey, were you listening in Las Vegas when Paul Stanley said he was going to eat the front row? Did you hear him say that? And every guy I talked to said, did you hear about what he said in Omaha? I said, no. Did you ask about what happened in Omaha? And I was like, what happened in Omaha? And I talked to somebody who worked for Kiss who said that apparently on stage in Omaha, Paul Stanley said, all right, people, now listen. I know this town, Omaha, Nebraska, is known for its Angus beef. And I can tell you right now, after this show, I'm going to want to sink my teeth into some meat. And the whole arena went, what? And then Paul Stanley came back to the microphone and said, now, wait a minute. Hold on. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a thigh or a rump roast. And the whole crowd went, what? And apparently the guitar techs, all the roadies behind the stage were tuning the guitars going, what the hell is he doing up there? He just got lost in the woods.
Is he still talking? What's he doing?
Yeah. My favorite is Tracy Morgan, because Tracy Morgan sounds like everybody I went to high school with. That dude's crazy. Caller number 7. I'm going to put a baby in you. That's crazy. Al Pacino is a favorite. That's a voice that women love to hear, even though he loves to yell for no reason. Adam Sandler, shibidoo, hee-hoo.
Lars and Christopher Walken.
Oh my God, Christopher Walken, who did I ever tell you that when I ended up on Sex and the City, they started auditioning me for all the HBO shows, and the casting director for all those shows was Georgianne Walken.
No, we never talked about Sex and the City.
Christopher Walken's wife. Georgianne Walken is a casting director for most of the big shows at HBO. So when I got on Sex and the City, I started getting auditions for Entourage, Sopranos, and Georgianne knew about me, and every time I would audition for her, she'd have me audition the way I wanted to audition, and then would say, do you feel good about that? And I'd go, yeah, I do. And she goes, okay. Do you mind if we do it one more time as my husband? And I go,
she wanted you to do impressions of her husband?
Yeah, and I would do it again. I remember one time I auditioned for The Sopranos. It was 2 lines. It was what was it? It was like a lawyer who said, Tony, we did everything we could. He's gone. She goes, you feel good about that? And I go, yeah, I feel good about it. She goes, all right. She goes, can we do it one more time as my husband? And I go, oh, yeah. All right, you ready? All right, go. Tony, we did everything we could. He's gone. Pow. She's like, perfect. Did I ever tell you that great Christopher Walken story?
No, but when there's silence, I'm trying not to laugh over top of you. Because it changes, your voice changes so much. It's like it's dead on. It's not like, oh, yeah, that sounds like Walken, like everybody does. Because everybody does like Arnold or Walken, and it's like, oh, yeah, that kind of sounds like him. But like you transform into him. So when there's that awkward silence, I'm backing off the microphone so I don't laugh over top of your impressions.
Greatest Christopher Walken story. I just did this for my storytelling podcast. Is a buddy of mine, Kamal, from the Jerky Boys. He had this amazing story that he witnessed this event with a friend of his who's an actor wannabe. By the way, this story is well over 30 plus years ago. He told me the story 20 years ago. He has a friend who's an actor wannabe. He's always trying to scheme his way into Hollywood events. He actually has managed to get some extra work in movies, but he introduces himself to strangers as a background actor. Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a background actor, which is just, it's just
hilarious.
Yeah. And so Jeff calls him up one day and goes, dude, I just found out there's a bar on 26th Street that every Tuesday, it's like a scene. There's actors and casting directors. So why don't we go next Tuesday? I'll bring my demo reel and we'll schmooze, right? And Kamal thinks the guy's a joke, and he goes, yeah, whatever, we'll go. So Tuesday night rolls around. They go to this bar on 26th Street. As they're walking to the entrance of this bar on 26th Street, laying on the ground with a bloody mouth is Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken just got in a bar fight.
Oh, man.
And is out on the street with a bloody mouth. And Kamal's friend actually pulls this move. Oh, my God, Chris, are you okay? Oh, man, hey, my name's Jeff. I'm an actor.
Shaking his hand.
Do you remember a girl named Christy? Does that ring a bell? She used to work in craft services. Do you remember Christy? She's a good friend of mine, Christy. You remember Christy? And Kamal says, I'm watching this unfold like, dude, what are you doing? He said Christopher Walken just starts wiping the blood off his mouth, and he goes, what's your name? Is it Jeff? Jeff, I want you to turn around. I don't want you to get out of my face. I'm going to make sure that you disappear and no one's ever going to see your face again. And this guy, Jeff, goes, okay, I'm sorry. Can I give you my reel? No, okay. No, okay. And he walks away. Like he's committed all the way to the end to just being that guy.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
dude. Oh, dude, I love a good story. That is what my show at the Egyptian is. It's stories. It's all these stories, including the greatest Boise story ever.
And it involves Dave Buckner somehow. This
From
is Saturday.
Papa Roach, who now lives here.
He's the original drummer from Papa Roach.
Yep, and he lives here in Nampa.
Now lives here in Idaho.
Yep.
And this is your first time at the Egyptian Theater. Craig Gass. Is it getgas.com?
It's getgas.com, getgas with 2 S's.com. And it's 7:30 this Saturday night at the Egyptian. Couldn't be more excited to see everybody there. Everyone who supported me over the years at my shows, at the Funny Bone, at my shows, at Lounge at the End of the Universe. This is the moment for all of us. I've always had great shows here in Boise. So
when are these two podcasts coming out? The one with Chris Kale and the stories?
The story one has already started with an incredible story about Dimebag, which I learned the night that I opened for Pantera. It's a crazy story. Dimebag's best friend ended up being his guitar tech. And when Dimebag's band, Pantera, started to hit, he said, dude, just come with me. You know how to play guitar. Just tune my guitars. And all their roadies were just their friends. So they just traveled around just causing mayhem everywhere with their friends. And when I ran into this guy, Grady, I asked him how weird it must feel to be on the road with this band now, but now you're working with Zach.
Dime's not there, yeah.
And Dime's not there. And he described to me how when he was getting the gear out of a warehouse to prepare for this, he realized he was pulling one guitar case out that was the guitar that Dime was playing the night that he was killed. And he called Dime's girlfriend and said, hey, I just want you to know I found the guitar from the night that he was killed. And she goes, did you open it? And he goes, no, that's why I called you first. But I will tell you this. I remember when they brought the guitar back, they told me they cleaned it. So, and she said, okay, all right, I'm going to come over. And they opened it together. And they didn't clean it.
Oh,
they wiped it.
Rita had to see that?
They wiped it down.
Oh, man.
And so they saw that together, and they both just started bawling. So that's episode number 2 of my storytelling podcast. It's on YouTube. It's called I Swear This Is True. Episode 1 is when I was in high school. I took Whitesnake shopping at the mall when I was in high school.
That's awesome.
Which sounds ridiculous, and I have Rudy Sarzo on the episode.
Yeah, bassist.
Episode number 3 is my buddy Ryan Leaf, former quarterback for the Washington State Cougars.
Nice.
Went on to the NFL and then had major drug problems. He was scared to go back to the Super Bowl, and I helped him go back to the Super Bowl at Super Bowl 50. And the podcast with Chris Kale launches 2 weeks from today.
And last question, 2 specials coming out in 2025.
Yep.
Any idea on timeline of those?
Yes. The special about me, it's just me making fun of Kiss for an hour. That's the whole comedy special. Me making fun of Kiss for an hour. It comes out before Valentine's Day, right before Valentine's Day.
Awesome.
And Sebastian Bach, again, makes up about a third of the show because he's in the audience going, dude, I know. That's crazy, dude. Let's smoke some weed. He's my favorite human being.
Can you do a little bit of Lars again from Metallica?
Dude, everybody come down to the Egyptian and let's get some cocaine, huh? Huh?
All right, man. Good luck Saturday. That's so awesome.
Thank
You're playing
you,
the
brother.
Egyptian Theater.
I can't wait to see everybody. Thank you.